Last night was night 76 of the ongoing riots in Portland, Oregon. And I want you to really think about that number. 76 nights of rioting. How is it possible? You'd think by simple attrition, eventually there would be no rioters left. I mean, the cops go out, there's a riot, they arrest people, and then sure enough, the people stop rioting once they go to jail, right? And therein lies the big problem. Riots have been sweeping across this country since they started at the end of May. They peaked in June, and they've still been going on, notably in Portland. Did you know that there was a riot in Richmond, Virginia recently? Mainstream news isn't really covering the fact that there are riots across the country. Now, Chicago recently saw mass rioting and looting, and it was pretty serious. And we can see exactly what the problem is right here with Chicago. The recurring theme for all of these riots, particularly with Portland, is the inability or the lack of will to actually prosecute any of these people. We've seen it in New York. They released a ton of protesters and said, we're going to dismiss the charges against them because it was a protest. In Fort Worth, people who are charged with rioting actually had their charges dismissed. And now the fraternity of police in Chicago is calling for a federal investigation against Kim Foxx because she is now instituting what's called a presumption of dismissal or something to that effect. Basically, if people are arrested in a protest, they're going to cut them loose. We saw this recently announced in Portland. This stuff is insanity. In Portland, they literally said you could assault an officer and they will still consider dismissing the charges because of the heat of the protest moment. When did peaceable assembly, when did we start tolerating an escalation of violence in the heat of the moment? Never. If a cop is going to make an arrest and people attack the cop, they attack the cop. The First Amendment says peaceably assemble, not, dance the line between violence in the heat of the moment. So if someone commits a crime, they need to be arrested, right? Well, the police are arresting them. In Chicago, there's concern that because of another event that's set to take place this weekend, and because Kim Foxx will not prosecute these people, this will encourage more looting, more rioting, and I think it's fair to say. You may be familiar with Kim Foxx from a few stories. She was the prosecutor who let Jussie Smollett go, which created a huge controversy. Why? It seemed to be that there was at least enough evidence to go to a trial, but she let the guy walk on felony charges. There's also an ongoing investigation from the Chicago Tribune, a journalistic investigation, about how she is dismissing more felony charges, substantially more, than her predecessor. It's because many of these left-leaning DAs are not tough on crime. They're particularly soft on crime. Now, let me tell you something. I myself am a freedom over security individual. I believe freedom is more important, and I believe it's fair to say it is better that 100 guilty persons escape than one innocent person suffer. And that was Benjamin Franklin, and he was taking Blackstone's formulation to the next level, which said only 10 people, right? The idea was the state cannot suppress innocent individuals. You really, really got to prove it. But I don't believe what we're seeing across this country is a fair assessment on, upholding freedom over security. Absolutely not. If the police have video of someone attacking an officer and rioting, surely that's enough. If people are live streaming themselves looting, surely that's enough. Well, Kim Foxx says she doesn't think that the way she's handling things will encourage looting. I really think it will. I've talked to locals. I have family in the area, and they believe that the looters and rioters no longer fear the police. So now what's happening? Well, in New York, they released a man accused of trying to cut the brake lines of an NYPD van. And the only reason this man is now in jail is because the feds swooped in. It seems that only Trump, the DHS, and the federal government are willing to actually arrest these people and stop them from engaging in this violence, which is why it seems now the fraternity of police is asking for a federal intervention. Isn't that rather amazing? Whatever that means, an intervention. We'll see how that plays out. So here's what I want to show you. What we're seeing with these district attorneys is happening in other places. And we'll get to the news. And I'll start here with NBC5 Chicago. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. But the best thing you can do is actually subscribe to this channel. About half the people who watch aren't even subscribed. All you got to do is right below this video is a little red button that says subscribe. Give it a tap. Boom. Now you're going to see more of my videos in your feed more frequently. If you really want to help out, you can hit the like button, the notification bell, and share the video so more people can hear about it. Let's read the news from NBC5. FOP president pens letter to U.S. attorney blasting Kim Foxx, asks for federal intervention. They say, the head of Chicago's Fraternal Order of Police penned a letter to U.S. Attorney John Losh Wednesday, calling on federal officials to intervene if Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx declines to move forward with prosecutions for individuals accused of looting or other criminal activity during the recent unrest in the city. The letter, written by FOP Lodge President John Catanzara, will be delivered to Losh's office Thursday, the FOP says. The letter criticizes Foxx's decision to institute a presumption of dismissal for charges related to looting and alleged that she was subscribing to an arbitrary theory that the offenders were protesters and somehow had the right to commit crimes due to the unfortunate death of George Floyd in Minnesota. Quote, our members did not arrest peaceful protesters. Our members arrested violent looters and criminals who took advantage of a situation, the letter read. It's time for the state's attorney of Cook County to do her job. If she refuses, the United States Attorney's Office to step in, they say there's an error there. Your office has the power and expertise to prosecute these cases, and we beseech you to step in and stand for law and order as Chicago police officers do each and every day. The comments harken back to a policy that Foxx said was put in place in late June, which would encourage prosecutors to use a presumption of dismissal for reviewing misdemeanors related to disorderly conduct, public demonstration, and unlawful gathering charges, according to the Sun-Times. Even in cases with more serious charges, prosecutors were encouraged to decline prosecution unless body-worn police camera or dash camera footage was available. Foxx disputed the idea that her office's decisions on prosecutions encouraged looters to once again strike over the weekend. Her office has been under scrutiny from various outlets after a Chicago Tribune analysis found that felony cases involving charges of murder and other offenses at a higher rate than her predecessor. Found that, are they saying, yes, her office has been under scrutiny from various outlets after an analysis found that felony cases involving charges of murder and other offenses were dismissed at a higher rate. I think they're missing some words there. Catanzara was not done criticizing Foxx's office, blasting reported plans of a Saturday protest that could take place on Chicago's Dan Ryan Expressway as an act of terrorism. We have also learned that there is a major protest scheduled for this weekend on the Dan Ryan Expressway, which will lead to more civil unrest and violence. The expressways should provide federal jurisdiction, as it will impede interstate commerce, and to be quite frank, to block an interstate highway is an act of terrorism. Catanzara's letter was also sent to President Donald Trump and Attorney General William Barr. A protest is scheduled for noon Saturday with multiple organizations set to participate. According to a Facebook post, marchers intend to enter the Dan Ryan Expressway near 47th Street and will march along the roadway. It is unclear at this time how many protesters will participate in any demonstration, but more than 2,000 individuals have indicated they are interested in participating. Well, I'm not necessarily convinced that it's going to be a full 2,000, but I do think it's fair to say that amid the chaos, looters and rioters will take advantage. I'm not sure I agree that blocking an interstate highway is terrorism. And I think the CPD have been very gung-ho. I mean, I grew up in Chicago and I got my criticisms of the CPD, man. But at this point, I'll tell you what, when people have it right, I will tell them they do. And right now, as much as I can agree with certain charges being dismissed and the general idea of criminal justice reform, if you keep releasing people who break the law and you know they break the law, they'll keep breaking the law and the riots will not stop. We're now hearing that people are set to flee Chicago over this. They're fleeing in Los Angeles, in New York. It's like it's all on purpose. These people have lost their minds. I can't tell you what they're thinking, but I can show you this. Take a look at this story from the Tribune. Kim Foxx drops more felony cases as Cook County State's Attorney than her predecessor, Tribune analysis shows. When you have heightened unrest and a dramatic escalation, and you are releasing people in higher numbers, I'm sorry. I'm not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I really don't think so, especially when the police are saying we arrested looters and they're being let go. But you know what? I'll tell you why there's another reason why I won't take Kim Foxx's word for it. In this interview with WBEZ, which is a Chicago NPR news source, they say, Winning has come through revolts. A Black Lives Matter activist on why she supports looting. I covered this a couple days ago. They absolutely feel it is their right to loot. What is your take on the police shooting in Englewood and the subsequent looting downtown? She says, a lot of people are attacking our pages. They're like, oh, you support the looters. And yeah, we do. 100%. That's reparations. And like, however people choose to protest, especially if it was definitely in line with what happened with the shooting, which would be powerful to see people reacting. Without organizers just being like, we're angry and this is what we're going to do, we're going to take back the power. I feel like these stores, these Macy's, these Gucci's, these PNC banks, they're not here for us. The city puts way more money and investment into spending time and protecting these spaces and making sure they exist, and yet our people are constantly being pushed out of the city. Unemployment is incredibly high, like we are in an incredible situation. And the fact that anybody gives an S about these businesses over what's happening in the city right now and the pain that people are in and the suffering that is taking place, I don't care. I will support the looters till the end of the day. If that's what they need to do in order to eat, then that's what you've got to do to eat. When she was asked, what do you say to people who argue looting undermines Black Lives Matter's message? I think those people are forgetting that the way that history has ever worked, the way that history has worked, the way that we've ever gotten wins has never been through peaceful protest alone. And I will say this with quotes, peaceful protests. Winning has come through revolts. Winning has come through riots. Winning has come through constant work. The only people that can undermine our movement are the police, our oppressors, and then us, when we don't believe in the people we're fighting with. If we are constantly trying to tell each other exactly the right way to do it, as opposed to finding ways to support each other and get that collective win, that is undermining. I don't undermine my movement. She goes on to talk about how it's not really looting because the businesses have looted them. Let me tell you something. A guy showed up to a Gucci with a gun and shot into the window several times trying to break in. That Gucci is not in your neighborhood. That Gucci is doing nothing to you. And I'll tell you why they protect these businesses. Because those stores, first of all, bring in revenue, which helps support even schools in your area. But more importantly, the stores don't break the law. The stores are literally just sitting there. I mean, some stores might break the law for sure, but like these stores are literally just sitting there. So when people get violent, cops intervene. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. Cops come down and intervene there too, the same as they would anywhere else. It is a lie that cops aren't there to keep the peace. The problem is you have a lot of nefarious actors and a lot of conflict. The looting and rioting in Chicago is due to a guy who fired a weapon at cops and is facing attempted murder charges. He got shot, he got injured, he's still alive, he's facing charges, and for that, they riot and try to break into stores, and literally break into stores, and then claim it's their right to do so. All of this is backfiring to an absurd degree. Chicago looting leaves residents feeling unsafe, ready to leave city. Property management company tells mayor. He's right. He's absolutely right. And I have to wonder if it's intentional. And I really do mean it. Like we saw in New York City, Bill de Blasio said he's going to buy up these empty buildings. There was a story in the Daily Mail about moving day in New York. These moving companies were overwhelmed trying to move people out of their apartments. Why? Well, it's the middle of the month, I assume, or even at the beginning of the month, people are now saying, I'm not going to live here. I'm taking off. Moving companies are sending people out. I've talked to friends in Los Angeles who tell me they see it's worse than it's ever been with the homeless camps everywhere and garbage in the streets. It is falling apart. And I know people who are fleeing. Several people recently announced. You may have heard Blair White, personality on YouTube, announced she'd be leaving Los Angeles. Joe Rogan is going to Texas, building a new studio. These big cities are falling apart. And you know what the common thread is that I hear from people, even liberals? The Democrats have failed these cities. I know a lot of people are right away going to be like, here, it's biased to point at the Democrats. It really is, man. Look, they tell you Antifa is a myth. Jerry Nadler said that. They lie to our faces and say there's no riots. There are riots. We've watched them. We suffered because of them. Our businesses are gone because of them. And they tell you it doesn't exist. You've got to make them own up to it. Let me show you this. Englewood residents push back on Black Lives Matter protesters from outside neighborhood following officer-involved shooting, August 12th. That's right. Black Lives Matter protesters came into the neighborhood. They showed up and said, get out. According to Gallup, 81% of Black Americans want the police to spend the same amount of time in their communities or even more. So it's 61% that feel it's a good amount. 20% say bring on more. Yet we keep hearing this narrative about defunding the police. No. Regular Americans don't like the riots. Regular Americans don't like any of this. Take a look at this story. Chicago PD launches looting video site to ID offenders. This is what the police are doing. Police have launched a new looting and civil unrest videos website with surveillance footage from Sunday's mayhem. They're asking for help. The department on Wednesday launched a website with surveillance footage, and the cops are asking the community to snitch on the offenders. This was an attack on our city. Chicago Chief of Detectives Brendan Denahan said at a briefing Wednesday, "We really need everyone's help to identify these offenders so we can arrest and charge them. Camera footage is only available when our officers and detectives can identify the individuals caught on camera committing the crime. We need everyone's help to do this." I'm not a big fan of snitching on your neighbors. I don't like that idea. If the police have evidence and they catch somebody, I think, so be it. I think within reason, if you have evidence of someone committing a crime, by all means, we need to bring these offenders to justice. So I'm not 100% opposed to this, but I got to admit, very cautious when I see surveillance state stuff like, we got a bunch of videos, everybody rat these people out. Yeah, we got to be really, really careful here. But there's a bigger problem, whether my opinion matters or not. This doesn't matter. You know why? I hate to say it, CPD. I appreciate that you are trying to enforce the law. You can do whatever you want, but the DA will not prosecute. And there you go. I mean, maybe she'll prosecute some people because she'll have to. But so what? You get a tip, you arrest them, and then she cuts them loose. That's the way it's going to be. I'm sorry. Until we get federal intervention, perhaps. Now, this is what we're hearing over on the political side of things. Make Joe Biden and Kamala Harris own the Black Lives Matter chaos from the Washington Examiner. And I agree. I absolutely agree. There was a story. Maybe you've seen it. If you go to Antifa.com, it would redirect you to Joe Biden's website. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have expressed support for Black Lives Matter. Joe Biden has expressed support for the general idea around what defunding the police is. He didn't say those exact words. I want them to denounce it. At the briefing, a reporter, I believe Chanel Rion is her name, asked the president, I believe she asked about Antifa.com redirecting to Joe Biden's website and asked if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris should denounce, these groups. And these articles that pop up say, why should they have to? I think they should. I do. Because a lot of these people who are out, this Antifa that people talks about, they're actually out for Black Lives Matter. If these people in Chicago for Black Lives Matter will straight up say, looting is our right, then the DA says, we're going to have a presumption of dismissal. The DA in Chicago released like 800 people that were arrested in protest events. The cops are saying, we did not arrest peaceful protesters. That was a while ago, mind you. The cops now are saying in this recent looting incident, these weren't peaceful protesters. They're criminals. Prosecute. And they need federal intervention because it's not getting done. I'm sorry, it's the Democrats doing it. And like I said, man, Bill de Blasio is going to buy up these cities and makes it sound intentional. It really does. I got more stories for you that we absolutely have to go through in all of this. Check this out. Downtown Louisville business sues city over $85,000 in riot damages. JJ's Wig Shop claims a stand-down order from the mayor's office stopped police from protecting their business during early protests. The mayor of Louisville is a Democrat. They say a downtown business has filed a lawsuit against the city, saying it suffered thousands in damages during early protests over the Breonna Taylor case. The owner of JJ Wig Shop, located on South 4th Street, claimed the lawsuit that a stand-down order from Mayor Greg Fisher stopped Louisville police officers from protecting her business. It took a lot of time and money to get where it was, and it was destroyed in a matter of days. And so why would there be a stand-down order? Why would they tell them to do this? To me, it's shocking. It's at this point predictable, and I don't know what else you can add other than it feels like it's intentional, or at the very least, it is Democrat-run cities that are doing this. Have we had any problems in San Diego? That's run by Republicans. Check out this story. 4 charged in overnight Richmond riot that left several buildings damaged. Courthouse closed again Thursday. I didn't even know that there were riots in Richmond in the past few days. And I'm somebody who reads the news incessantly. It's my job. I read the news nonstop. And I'm finding out about this right now. I also am shocked to find that there were last week widespread Blue Lives Matter and walk away protests around this country. Not too big, but enough of them and moderately large, big enough. Where was the mainstream national coverage about this? Nowhere. I'll take responsibility for that. I should have absolutely been on top of the game when I was covering these riots. Well, I'm here now. I'm doing my best, right? This story just came out. It was last night at 8:42 that 4 people have been charged because there was a riot. At least they're calling it a riot. I appreciate that, NBC 12. It's happening all over the country. I'm pretty sure you will find that there are riots and unlawful assembly, whatever, lesser riots to lesser degrees, I would say, everywhere. In a piece from Michael Tracy, journalist, he drove around the country and he found that there were cities no one ever talked about that experienced very serious rioting. I don't understand why. Why they won't let the police do their job, why they're standing down, why they're pulling back, and why they won't prosecute these individuals. So I'll tell you this. They're calling for federal intervention in Chicago. Well, there you go. I don't blame them. What do you think would happen if Joe Biden was president? Do you think Joe Biden would agree and say, okay, we'll send in the feds? I don't. I really don't. I think Donald Trump is waiting for it. I think Donald Trump says, you give me the word and I will deploy DHS to help you on your streets. It's happening everywhere. Take a look at this. We have from Oregon Live. Multnomah County DA's office won't prosecute many arrested in Portland protests. I know you've probably seen me highlight this many times, but I need to put in the context for this segment. Look at this. Prosecutors will scrutinize the cases of protesters accused of resisting arrest or assaulting a public safety officer and consider the chaos of a protesting environment. Protesting environments aren't chaotic. Riots are. This is why they keep saying protest, protest, protest instead of riot. They are trying to change our understanding of the language. Protests, when you go out, you raise your fist, you wave a sign, and you say rabble, rabble, rabble. Riot, you smash and burn things and attack people. There's not supposed to be a chaotic environment in a protest. It's supposed to be an orderly assembly for the most part. Now, people can engage in civil disobedience, and maybe there's some chaos. I think that's fine. But we're not talking about someone sitting down and linking arms in a street and getting walked away. We're talking about people running through the streets, smashing things for 76 nights. And now we're seeing last night was basically worse than we've seen in a long time. They returned to the federal courthouse, even though there's no feds out. And it took the state police, it took Sheriff's County, the Multnomah Sheriff Police, and it took local police to deal with these rioters who are going to get arrested. And they're going to get cut loose instantly because they're straight up saying you could assault an officer and they probably won't charge you. Well, neighbors are unhappy as demonstrations move east into residential Portland. That's right. They're coming to people's homes. It was only a matter of time. And I'm tired of saying it, because I think it's obvious to most of you that it will continue so long as something is done about it. But the Democratic, DAs or whatever, these cities, they're just letting these people go. They're literally just letting these people go. It's only going to escalate, and it's going to get bad. New York City, teen in critical condition after being set on fire. Wow, man. That to me is we've seen an escalation in lethal crime, robberies. These cities really are collapsing. I don't blame Trump for any of this. It's the governors. It's COVID. I don't blame the governor, of New York or the mayors or Trump for the existence of COVID. And when it comes to the economy, it's the governors that did this. They're the ones arresting gym owners. They're the ones that are revoking the license of businesses and threatening people who try to run their business. And the cities are completely falling apart. They're marching with the extremists. They're raising their fist with them, celebrating them, painting their slogans in the street in defiance of the law. These people have executed their own, personal desires over the rest of the people with no democratic process. This is authoritarianism. These governors, these mayors are despotic. It has become, it really is dystopian. And every day it gets worse, where now they're saying chaotic protest environments. You've got to pay attention to how they change the language. That's why I always say riot. That's why whenever they say protest, I say no, riot, because they want you to think about the right to protest and have an image in your head of people smashing and burning things. And then say, well, it is their right, huh? That's what they're saying in Portland. That's what they're saying in Chicago. So people are fleeing these cities. It's a shame. I want to show you something positive to end this video to end this video on. An officer saved a man in a wheelchair stuck on train tracks. Her body cam video shows the rescue. We of course have reasons to criticize police, for sure. I do. I'm not a big fan of the CPD, but I will defend what is right. You know, I'll defend what's right. We don't see this enough. Stories like this: a man was stuck on train tracks. An officer rushed in and pulled him out, saving his life. We used to get stories like this, but the problem is cops saving people is considered routine. They say that, you know, if the cop does their job, well, they don't deserve congratulations because it's literally their job. No, I think if you're being inundated with negative information, with smears and hit pieces and actual, you know, literal police brutality, your opinion skews negative and it may not be representative of the entire police, you know, of all police, right? So we have stories like this. And I think we need these every so often to counteract this negative view of what cops are and what they do. Cops also save people's lives. You see the video of the cop rushing in and saving the baby's life and rushing it to the hospital? Now we have another one. It's important to remember that things are nuanced. But when you get someone telling you that it's all one way or the other, you've got to take it all with a grain of salt. Even from me, especially from me. If you think I'm pushing too hard in one direction, then by all means, you Google it, you fact check it, you call me out. I hope everyone would do the same for everyone else, but I think people are very tribalistic. I'll leave it there. We'll see if a federal intervention actually happens. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastNews. Thanks for hanging out. Now we'll see you then.